I like games every once in a while.
It takes up the time of ICE officers and is political theater, and it takes away from the national security and public safety mission.
How about bashing car windows of people with no criminal record?
That's driven from quotas of arrests being driven by the White House. And that is politicization of ICE immigration enforcement, so it's political theater.
How about deporting people who are even citizens? That's not even deportation, but you know what I'm saying.
It's political theater, and I believe that this White House is getting the outcome, the reaction that they want and they desire.
$800 million in there for bonuses. Do you support that?
Yeah, what kind of bonuses are we talking about? Are we talking retention bonuses?
This is a great question, Mr. Marino. Great question. They didn't say at all in the backup.
Yeah, I never received a $42,000 bonus.
Good, perfect. We agree. I would like
However, times are different. Recruiting is tougher. Retention is a challenge. And if that's something that it's needed for, I would support it.
So do you support those bonuses for NOAA, FEMA, the Pentagon, all of the departments, or just ICE?
What's up, real Americans? Welcome back to Right View Nation, where we slice through the nonsense and give you the unfiltered truth, straight from the heartland of common sense. If you're tired of the circus, if you're fed up with political games, and if you still believe in law, order, and the American dream, you're in the right place. And let me tell you, today's video, it's a flaming example of just how far gone the left has taken things. We're diving into a wild congressional hearing where Representative Jasmine Crockett played a round of political theater or progress, like it's some TikTok game show. And the topic? ICE agents, immigration, border security, bonuses, and oh yeah, a whole lot of liberal tantrums. Let's break it down. So there she is, Crockett, proud as ever, treating a congressional hearing like it's trivia night at the local dive bar. She says she likes games every once in a while. Really? Is this what representation has become? Games. She fires off questions like, is revoking birthright citizenship political theater? Is deporting illegal immigrants who overstayed their visas political theater? Is smashing car windows political theater? And like a trained puppet, the witness answers, political theater, over and over again. Well, let me ask you, folks, is enforcing the law political theater? Is protecting our national sovereignty now just a partisan game? Because if that's where we are, then this country's in trouble. Deep trouble. The real kicker? The left is trying to paint ICE, one of the only agencies standing between us and total chaos, as the villain. Apparently, when ICE officers arrest illegals, it's political. When they uphold the law, it's partisan. And when they request bonuses, you guessed it, that's bloat. But let's set the record straight. ICE agents are on the front lines. These men and women face drug cartels, human traffickers, and violent felons every single day. They aren't politicians, they're patriots. And if anyone deserves a retention bonus for risking their necks daily, it's them. Yet the same politicians who want to hand out welfare to illegal immigrants are crying foul about a $42,000 bonus for ICE agents? You've got to be kidding me. And it doesn't stop there. These clowns had the nerve to rant about politicizing law enforcement, while turning the whole hearing into a stage play. They claim it's all just Republican propaganda, yet admit there's $800 million in the budget for federal bonuses, with no explanation of what they're for. Let that sink in. $800 million. No documentation. No details. Just a giant slush fund that could go to any agency, while simultaneously attacking ICE agents for daring to ask for a retention bonus. That's not responsible governance. That's liberal hypocrisy on steroids. Just when you think it couldn't get worse, Representative Raskin steps in to do what Democrats do best, scream Trump, as a distraction.
Right. Mr. Hauser, it's back to us. I like games every once in a while, and so I have some questions. The questions are going to be, is it political theater or progress? You ready? The first question is going to be, doing an executive order revoking birthright citizenship, political theater or progress?
Political theater, it doesn't help the mission of ICE.
Okay. How about revoking student visas?
It takes up the time of ICE officers and is political theater, and it takes away from the national security and public safety mission.
How about bashing car windows of people with no criminal record?
That's driven from quotas of arrests being driven by the White House. And that is politicization of ICE immigration enforcement, so it's political theater.
How about deporting people who are even citizens? That's not even deportation, but you know what I'm saying.
It's political theater, and I believe that this White House is getting the outcome, the reaction that they want and they desire.
How about arresting political opponents?
That would be political theater.
Yeah, so here's the deal. I know that you've been cut off a number of times as you have tried to give answers to various questions. Thank you so much for explaining that even this committee hearing is actually a bunch of political theater, because there's a lot of things that we could be talking about. We could be talking about the fact that we are currently in reconciliation, and while everyone else has been told to do things such as make sure that you take food out of people's mouths, make sure that you get rid of people's health care, make sure that you are harming our federal workers even more by making sure that the resources that they need to be able to do their job just kind of disappear. But at the same time, I think the way that Mr. Moskowitz figured it, it would be approximately $44,000 as it relates to a bonus for each ICE agent. Is that correct?
It's incorrect. It was 42,000.
Okay, my bad. But the reality is that we do have real problems. And I don't know how we're gonna get to real solutions if we continue to just make everything about politics. As it was properly outlined by the gentleman from Florida, that was a Republican bill. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I wasn't really a big fan of the bill myself on my side. So I know that there was a lot of conservative stuff in that bill that was going to be harmful. And with that, I am gonna yield back to the gentleman from Florida.
Yeah, and I'm going to yield time to the recommended registry in a second. Mr. Marino, on that topic of bonuses, just real quick, do you support ICE agents getting $42,000 worth of bonuses? There's $800 billion for bonuses. Okay. I say billion, I'm sorry, million, I apologize. $800 million in there for bonuses. Do you support that?
Yeah, what kind of bonuses are we talking about? Are we talking retention bonuses?
This is a great question, Mr. Marino. Great question. They didn't say at all in the backup. Yeah. There was no documentation at all what the bonuses were for or what it would be. It was just $800 million for bonuses. It sounded like a lot of money for federal employees for bonuses. Not that we don't want to treat our federal employees great, of course we do. But I had suggested $500 million for bonuses, and they said, no, $500 million sounds a little better, right?
Well, look.
Or zero. Are you at zero for bonuses, maybe?
I never received a $42,000 bonus.
Good, perfect, we agree. I would like
to
yield.
However, times are different. Recruiting is tougher. Retention is a challenge. And if that's something that it's needed for, I would support
it. So do you support those bonuses for NOAA, FEMA, the Pentagon, all of the departments, or just ICE?
I would support strategic use of retention bonuses where they were needed.
Okay. I'd like to yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Raskin.
Thank you, Mr. Moskowitz. Mr. Hauser introduced the important idea of political theater. You've introduced the idea of bureaucratic bloat. And our ranking member on the subcommittee has talked about the assault on the living standards of millions and millions of people in the country and their health care. I just want to add one final piece of this, which is that Donald Trump and his family have been making more than $1 billion a month since they got into office on the crypto scam, and now he's collecting a $400 million airplane from the dictator of Qatar. There is an absolute ripoff of the taxpayers taking place and a prostitution of the presidency. And I think that completes the picture for what's taking place in our country today. I yield back to the gentleman, and thank you.
And I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He goes off on some absurd tangent about Donald Trump and his family making $1 billion a month off a crypto scam. No proof, no context, just wild allegations because they can't make a coherent argument without dragging Trump's name into it like a security blanket. And they wonder why the American people are sick of it. These are the same people who turned a blind eye to Hunter Biden's shady dealings. The same crowd that shrugged off billions sent to Ukraine with zero oversight. But now, suddenly, they care about taxpayer dollars? Spare us the sanctimony. Here's the truth, folks. Political theater isn't ICE doing their job. It's not retention bonuses for law enforcement. It's this entire charade from the left, pretending to care while gutting border security and dismantling the rule of law. While Americans struggle to pay rent, buy groceries, and stay safe in crime-ridden cities, these politicians are too busy playing games and mocking the very institutions that protect us. This is exactly why we need strong leadership. This is why Trump's America First agenda matters. Because law and order are not optional. National security is not a partisan issue. And rewarding bravery is not bloat. So if you're fired up, like I am, don't just sit there. Like this video. Subscribe to Right View Nation for unapologetic truth every single week. Share this with every patriot you know. The message needs to get out. And to Representative Crockett and her band of bureaucrats, if you really want to help the American people, stop playing games. Start standing up for the brave men and women who risk it all to keep this country safe. Until next time, God bless you, God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America.